Hey, good morning.
It is Thursday, and we are so glad that you are with us. My name is Kim Spillers.
And I'm Frank Spillers, and welcome to Rural Community Solutions live stream TV, where we talk about creating environments in communities, creating environments in organizations, and we help design family-friendly, youth-centered places that attract people, attract entrepreneurs. So we're really going to have some fun today because we've got a great interview lined up.
We do. We are so excited and grateful that Carley Bruning is joining us today. And Carley is the brand new, you only started a month or so ago, Executive Director of the countywide organization called the Thayer County Economic Development Alliance, and that's in Nebraska. So we are so grateful. I'm going to tell you just a few highlights about Carley. Carley has a resume that is just amazing. It's a whole page. We'd take the whole half hour just reading all this woman's skills. But she is, as the executive director, she's responsible for local business assistance. She does some marketing. She does entrepreneurship, talent recruitment, business retention, all things to all people for her business and job description.
She goes home and has other duties that's assigned.
Exactly. That's what it sounds like. But she also has had some wonderful experience and success with housing and revitalization, talent recruitment. She's done some COVID recovery programs already. So holy mackerel, just this year, you've had some really cool experiences. She's a graduate of the Nebraska State Chamber's Leadership Nebraska program. She's been in multiple leadership classes, and so her resume is quite impressive. And if anybody wants it, we'll be happy to share it with you. But we really want to learn from Carley. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. Welcome, Carley. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm excited to be a part of this.
Oh, well, we're just really grateful. Thanks so much. So what we're talking about this week at Rural Community Solutions is about a healthy board, an entrepreneurial board, how nonprofits and organizations can encourage people to be really excellent board members, to choose people exactly for their skill sets or for their contributions or for the talents that they bring. So what kind of experiences have you had, Carley, in your business and professional and personal life that have related to board experiences, and what kind of characteristics do you see do and maybe don't make for a healthy functioning board?
So a lot of times you find boards are made up of people that are very busy. And so people think that that is a great characteristic because you know that they're going to get things done. But to be a healthy board member, you also have to know when to say no. And so I kind of made it my own personal motto that if I feel tapped out, I will say no to be on a board and ask them to ask me in a year or two. And so I still want the opportunity. I still want to go to their events and help them. But just knowing that if you're spread too thin, you're not a healthy board member. And so you're not getting the promises done and you're not fulfilling the mission of what you're trying to accomplish. So my personal experience has been to be okay with saying no to different things. And I also, when I look for board members, I give them that same opportunity. I will tell them, you have been nominated or you are excellent in this role or this role. This is why I feel you'll be a great addition to our board. But if you feel that this is too much of a commitment, let me know. And so I let them just kind of have that floor to say, you know, I really am. I'm coming off of this board in a year. Could you ask me later? So that also helps really create the well-roundedness of your board, because sometimes board members that aren't being very active are just, like I said, spread too thin. So that's something that I take into my personal and my professional boards. So
that's awesome. I like the way you phrase that, well-rounded. So what does that mean when you're talking about a board? What do you have in mind, or what have you experienced?
Right. So when you're trying to, depending on what your nonprofit is, finding some experts in that field, or maybe somewhere where you lack, those are the board members that you want. So I know that I don't know a lot about legal things, or I don't know a lot of, financial things, then those are the type of board members that you really want to fill, because you want them to fill where you feel you lack. So they'll be your strength where your weakness is. So as I look to board members to give me nominations of people, I also look, okay, what other boards are they on? Where do they work? What are some of their likes? And then I really try to bring the people together that will shine where I don't. So that's something I look for.
So where do you find your board members?
Well, I'm only a month into my new position. So that's hard. But reaching back into my previous experience in my last community, sometimes I like to tap into somebody who's never served on a board before. And so they're fresh and they're eager and they're energetic, and they'll just bring a whole different idea of different, how do we fundraise, or how do we do something? So I would tap into my leadership classmates and in the area. And so that's who I'm like, hey, have you ever served on the board? I'm like, I've never done it before. I'm like, well, I believe you can. How about you come join me on this board? And so by giving them the confidence, then it really helps them. And so having that fresh outlook, because sometimes people that serve on so many boards, they get into a rut. And so they feel like that's the same type of board member they're going to be on all of the boards. So I really like that fresh, energetic perspective. So
Fresh as a picture. That's really fun. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, earlier this week we talked about that of, it's having the regular people around town and the normal suspects, the usual suspects. Everybody goes to them and sits on the board. You have the bank president, you have the loan officer, or you have, their designee, and then you go to the accountant's office, and then you go to the attorneys, and all those professional positions. And of course,
right.
The school superintendent has to be on there too. And then they just start, well, I'm on this board, but they don't really have the passion for that board. So then they don't show up, and you have, there's nothing worse than having a board meet and you don't have a quorum.
Right. And so in my new role, I've had some conversations, and I will lead it with who in your organization would be the best fit for our board. So we let them know that we want them represented, but we also want them to dig deeper than just them. I'm not asking the CEO always to join. And so I give them the opportunity to look within their, leadership team, who would be the best person. So then they can also designate that, so it's not the same people on every board, but we have the same large employers and people being represented.
Okay.
When we talk about our mission as a company, we design family-friendly, youth-centered places. So we really focus heavily on a couple of things. One is youth involvement. And then what we look way down the line is to take actions now that are going to create life about 25 years down the road. Because that's what happened is 25 years ago, what we're living now was created then, was designed. The world spun into what we're now living. So we want to look down the road. Do you have any experience with having youth involved in any of your boards, your organizations, or councils or anything?
I haven't had any youth serve on a board with me, but I did serve on a board for youth. And so my perspective was a little bit different. And so CASA, court-appointed special advocates, boards I was on. So we represented youth. So it was a little bit different. Looking into some of the entrepreneurial things for my new community with economic development, I've kind of talked with one of the 4-H advisors. And so we're really trying to see how can we make that, start bringing some of the youth into some of our businesses. And so really getting that impact as well. So I think it's great if you always have every generation on a board, because they have perspective, and sometimes the greatest conversations come from that generational difference and just really talking through a lot of the things. So I would be eager to move forward with some of the ideas that we have here involving youth on some of the decision making. So,
gosh, that's just awesome. So as we're talking this week, we have laid out some possibilities of what good characteristics and traits and habits and things like that of board members might be. What do you think has stood out in your time for what kind of person would that look like? Or does that look like? Or doesn't it look like?
Itself look like that type of board member. And so really just being an advocate for what your mission is, somebody who is always willing to help. So I know that we are all busy. And so if somebody is too busy telling me that they're too busy, I take that as a great characteristic, because they're saying, I really want to do this, but I'm not going to give you 110%. Is there somebody else that could maybe do this job? And so as I serve on boards, I try to do that too. So if somebody nominates me or volunteers me to do something, I will say,
Voluntold. I like that. Voluntold.
I'm keeping that one. Voluntold.
Yeah, I was volunteered to do something. Just being completely honest and saying, I would love to, but I'm just really, spread thin. And just integrity. So if you do see people on different boards, community, nonprofits, for-profits, just looking at their well-roundedness, like I've mentioned before, that also is a great characteristic. So if they serve on many different boards, they have information that you would never be able to tap into if they hadn't sat on your board. So just looking at where they have served and where they might serve again.
So what makes in your opinion, what makes an entrepreneurial board member?
One that is always willing to learn, is always staying with the trends. Sometimes you get, board members that think this is how we've always done it. It works okay. And then that's when I smile at them and I'll tell them, yeah, but it could be better. How can we make this better? And so just always having that creativity makes a great board member for that. So, and you can also see that a lot in their life. So if they like to go out, travel, or like to do something exciting, that they have that little itch inside them that is a creative flame. And so you just need to fan that. So that's what I look for.
Yeah. And then you have that creative board member, but you really have a executive director, or it can even be flip-flopped. You can have a really creative executive director and board members that are just, we've always done it this way before, so let's not rock the boat, and it's not good for the community. Specifically, a person that has just moved into the position, you're all fired up, you can see a whole bunch of possibilities, you're coming in, you're ready to go. I've been where you are, you're ready to go. And right. your board is kind of going, whoa.
Right. Treat it like a diesel in the winter. So they need a little bit warmed up, and they need a little bit of sweet talking, and they just need to be reminded, like, we can do this. We can do this together. And so a lot of times when I do my board reports or when I'm talking to them, I continually will use the word we or team. And so I never make it about me. I make it about the organization and us together as a board, as, staff and board. And so just looking at that and always thanking them for their time, that's very important. Because, why does an executive director always expect the board to thank them for their job? You need to thank them because a lot of times they are volunteers. And so they're thanking you for doing the job they pay you, but you need to thank them for being there for you and for volunteering. So
that is very important because, and people in communities they're just screaming for volunteers. People in our age group and the boomers, they've run things for decades and are tired, retiring, moving on to the next phase of their life. And the generational trends seem to indicate that there may be a shift in how people, whether or not people join or whether or not just what they follow. What have you seen as a younger, very involved community member in your positions and personally? What have you seen about that, the generational trends?
So sometimes I feel, as being, in that generation, sometimes I feel like we don't have the permission to lead. And so sometimes that looks like we're not being an active board member, but we're sitting there actively waiting for the permission to do so. And so whenever I ask new board members to join, whether it's my organization or a board that I'm trying to help fill that I'm serving, I let them know that we want your ideas. We want to hear it. If you have questions, concerns, let us know. It's just allowing them the permission to be the board member that they see in themselves. And then again, just really pushing them to be that person. And so some of the most fun I've had on boards is watching another board member just really blossom. And so it's like, you know what, I got them on here, but I just watched them just become amazing. And so sometimes I have more fun watching that. And so I do love leadership. I love leadership development within people, and being on a board is one of the greatest things. And I feel like fear holds a lot of the younger generation back, and lack of permission to lead. So those
that is a really important point. Too often, we probably could say that there's a group of good old people, good old boys, and rightly in a way. So, people who have run the town, who have been in leadership positions professionally and personally for decades, have gotten a community to where it is. That can have several different ways to look at it. But you're exactly right that somebody had to kind of allow them to take position. And so it is very generational, isn't it? Just how that goes along.
Yeah. And so I know there's been some, I'm kind of a why not girl. And so if somebody asks me to do something and that little voice inside your head, you're not ready for that. I'm like, why not? Why am I not ready for this? And so if it doesn't scare you, it's not worth doing. And so sometimes taking those big leads, like I was asked, I'm the co-chair of the Leadership Nebraska Alumni Advisory Board. And I thought, how can I serve alumni of this prestigious leadership group? Like, I don't have that. And then I'm like, why not? Why do I not have that within me? And so just really stepping up to that challenge also, because I had the permission. And so I took it. So just really allowing ourselves as well to ask for that permission. So
a lot of times also the board will have a culture, and we will train toxic boards, basically. Yeah. I mean, you won't have those, you won't have the good old boys that step aside and let other people in. You will have them step aside for people that they have groomed for their position. Right. And specifically, well, I want to also just say it, in some of the economic development organizations that I have been involved with, or I have worked with in other communities, that you have run into that, to where they seem to have that power base and keep the their thumbs on the power base, and it's a very secretive group, and we're going to be doing this and this and this, and we can't let the public know what we're doing until we're ready to do it.
Right.
Talk a little bit about how toxic that is for an organization, and how draining that is for an executive director to run into.
So it's a cancer. And so it gets inside, it just starts eating away. And so then you'll start seeing everybody else's passion just start really diminishing. And so really having one of those board members is just, you can't flat out tell them, because they can ultimately decide your employment. Yep. And so if they're not like on the executive team, you can voice, let's say it's not the president of your board, you can really just in confidence say, I just want you to know this is what I'm struggling with. And so once you have somebody else's eyes open to it, if there's somebody you can trust on your board, and so then what you're just doing is you're just shining light on what you're seeing. And so then they'll start paying attention and seeing it as well. And like I mentioned before, I had the reverse of that. I had, a board that was following a toxic executive director. And so really trying to, one by one, just start to peel away people and say, are you noticing this too? This is what I'm seeing. And so if you can find a friend on your board that can really listen to you, I believe that is one way to start solving that because then they'll start stepping up and speaking up, and then it's not just you. So they're not pointing it back at you saying, no, you're the toxic person. So
yeah, in Chamber Kingdom, we kind of say, always put a board member between you and the problem.
Correct. Yes.
As an executive director, yeah.
Yep. And so, and at any time, you know, always bring somebody else with you to have the conversations with the board member or with the director or whomever is being that cancer. Just bringing somebody else there that also, even if they don't see the problem on your side, there's still a third party there. So
yeah. So yesterday we talked about doing board retreats and the function of a board retreat. How important to you as an executive director, how important is that board retreat for, one, everybody to show up, two, everyone to participate, three, everyone to stay there for the time?
Yeah. But,
and then the importance of that for the direction of the organization.
And creating a vision for what around which everybody can wrap their little heads and their activities and their excitement.
Right. Board retreats are awesome. They are a chance for you, even if you go out of town and it's not very far, people start to drop their guards a little bit because, you know, they don't have to look over their shoulder. They get comfortable in the conversations. And then if you just put them into situations where maybe there's entertainment or a great meal, you'll start having organic conversations. And then these board members will start realizing they have a lot more in common than just coming to that monthly board meeting from 2 to 4 p.m. on the first Monday every month. And so what you really start to do is you start to, you know, let them involve themselves with each other's lives. And then your board really becomes a really sacred group. And so the board retreats are just that opportunity to have that conversation that you wouldn't normally have in a stiff boardroom, like I said, once a month. And so really getting them to want to come and to, you know, you volunteer for us, but let us treat you to this. And then at the same time, giving them leadership, a little bit development so they can personally invest it in their personal life, their professional life, and not just for the board. So it's a way of giving back to them.
Yeah. Kind of gives them permission. They can let their hair down, but also for you, it's a time that you get their undivided attention to focus on the mission and vision of the organization.
Right, exactly. And like I said, just something about that atmosphere, it just really allows them to start growing and then start listening and start just having the conversation. And so just like always giving them the permission to do so. And so that is one of the greatest things I think about board retreats.
Yeah.
That is just awesome. Sounds like you have just a marvelous future ahead of you, and your board members are in great hands, and the community of Thayer County is in marvelous hands too. And you're a local girl, right?
So my husband is from this area. Yep. So we moved here. So everybody knows who I am. I'm just trying to learn who they are, but yeah.
You've got that label on.
Yeah. You're not from here, are you?
Oh. He always laughs that in our previous role, he was always known as my husband. Here, I'm known as his wife, and so he finds it's funny to him now. But yeah, when I took this position, I told my board the very first board meeting, I told them to buckle up, and so I gave them the permission. I said, I'm going to need a lot of information being new in this role, and I'm going to expect a lot. And if that's too much for your time commitment, then let me know. No hard feelings. And so just allowing them to know that, buckle up, here we go. And so just giving them, pressure off if they're too busy to let me know. So
your husband moving back to his hometown, how has he found it? Two, how has he been accepted?
So, my husband is a fourth generation to work into the family business. And so he was working at other branches elsewhere. And so this was always a goal. And so, there's always that little bit of stigma of why did he move back already? But at the same time, this was always a plan and a goal for us. And so, it's been an easy transition for him, because his job hasn't really changed. And so the hardest transition has been for myself, with going from an office of 3 to an office of 1. And going from a larger board to a smaller board. And so my transition's been a little bit difficult. But.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
Well, it sounds like you're on the right track. I mean, and Thayer County could not have had a better hire than to bring you on board. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to get you to know. And we're running out of time. You have so much more information that we want to glean from you. So will you come back?
Yes, of course. I would love.
Perfectly. We hope you do. And Carley, we want to thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. And as we said, we're going to have you back. It's great to get to know you. It's great to get to know how they're. I'm more interested. I'm also interested in Leadership Nebraska and how you have developed there. I'd love to talk to you about how do you train board members and make sure that they come up through the ranks and all that. So whole bunch more on down the road that we'll have you back. But we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Carley. So for those of you who may have missed the introduction, we have Carley Bruning with us. She's the Executive Director for the Thayer County Economic Development Alliance. And we are just so grateful that she has taken the time to be with us today and talk about what kinds of things make a healthy board, entrepreneurial board. And so thanks, Carley. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, so for tomorrow, we're going to wrap up entrepreneurship. We're thinking like an entrepreneur, being a creative board. We're going to wrap that up. And as we wrap that up, we're going to be talking about our concentric circles of how do we work with boards? How do you need to work with boards, of building the relationships and building that engagement factor of the board members belonging, and how do they be involved in that to build that relationship? Because as a board, as an entrepreneurial thinking board, you need that basis of trust. You need the board members to trust each other. You need the board members to trust the staff and the executive director of your organization. Because as you start to build that and you're using each other's passions, skills, and abilities as you're working and getting to know your board, you're really building entrepreneurial wealth as you build your organization. And that is one of those things that you really want to do for your organization. So we really appreciate you being here. We hope that you have enjoyed this interview today. We will be back tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Central Daylight Time, Monday through Friday. We're going to be back tomorrow on Friday to wrap up the Think Like an Entrepreneur board, be an entrepreneurial board in our session, and then we'll just see where it goes from there.
We know what's next week, so you come back tomorrow and we'll be sure and let you know what next week's topic is. So thanks for joining us. I'm Kim Spillers.
And I'm Frank Spillers, and this has been Rural Community Solutions Live Stream TV. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Rural Community Solutions TV live stream, or go to our Facebook page at Rural Community Solutions and like the page and get updated all the time when we do go live. So we really appreciate you being here. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care. Bye-bye.